No, actually, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Today we're talking about naturalization, so obtaining citizenship. And with that said, let's just go ahead and jump into it. So, first some quick housekeeping. Who we are. I am immigration attorney Ivan Ferranda. I've been an immigration attorney for all sorts of different law firms, ranging from the biggest in the world with like 200 or offices in 200 countries to my own law firm now. So I have 5 years of immigration experience, and now I am out on my own, and it's been a really fun journey. And I am grateful to have been able to partner up with Inigo, and they are doing incredible work, and they are always my go-to referral and a very just trusted and beloved partner. And I'm glad that you guys have partnered up with them as well. And with that said, I want to help you guys be better legal advocates. So, as legal advocates, what we do is we help guide people through the process. So here we're going to be helping them get from lawful permanent resident to citizen. What we don't do though is we do not provide legal advice. So that's the one thing I just want to make sure that we are aware of. Here, right now with everything going on politically, this may be, the fight of our lives. We're hoping that a situation like this, what we are all collectively going through as a nation, never happens again. And it could be one of those just like 1 in 100 type of events, like 1 in 100 year events. So with that said, since we're in the middle of this, one of the things that really impacts and changes prevents this from continuing onwards is our votes. And as you know, only US citizens can vote. So by getting out there, we are continuing to fight the good fight, but one of the ways in which we can remain out there fighting the good fight is by not getting in trouble. So one of the ways we avoid getting in trouble is just making sure we don't provide legal advice, just because that's considered unlawful practice of law. So with that said, or with that warning out of the way, today we want to learn how to screen someone to make sure that they can go from resident to citizen. Spot any risks or red flags, like know what to avoid, or let them know like, well, we cannot continue for these reasons. How to learn how to prepare them, not just for like filling out forms, but also for the interview itself and the exam that it comes with, and like go discussing some of the changes that are going on with the exam, and also to know when to refer them over to an attorney. So this, just one thing I want to share really quickly is that this is how I started as well in the legal field. Also, my very, very first exposure personally in immigration was a naturalization fair. Like, it was a naturalization fair going on over in Orange County, and I was also helping out people filling out forms. At the time, I didn't know the impact, and also our training was not as comprehensive as this is gonna be. So that is how I first started in immigration, or my dipping my toes in the water. And I may have been just a 20-year-old punk back then, so not knowing the impact that this would have on people's lives. I just when you're young, you don't really think of the consequences or just the deep impact these changes can make. But I do want to reassure you, this is life-changing work here. So with that said, let's briefly discuss why this matters. So first and foremost, why should we want to help people become citizens? What do they get out of it? Why can't they just stay a lawful permanent resident for the rest of their life? Well, I kid you not, at least twice a month, I am talking to green card holders who are telling me my green card's getting revoked for these reasons, or I just got back from the airport and they were trying to make me sign away my green card. So nowadays, nowadays it's just a little more risky to be a person in this country. But even lawful permanent resident status is not enough to fully protect people nowadays. And truthfully, citizenship isn't either 100%, but it is more secure just because when you are a resident, a judge can still take away your green card, whereas if you are a citizen, denaturalization proceedings are so much more rare, like it's very unlikely to happen. So with that said, one of the reasons is, I don't want to say to avoid complacency, because that's really not what it is, but it is, I like to think of it as seeking a more secure shelter. Also, there's a lot of good stuff you get out of it too. You can vote and make an impact in our elections, whether it's local, state, or federal elections. You can travel with a US passport, which is a very, very strong passport. And you know, less like if you're traveling to certain countries, maybe now you don't have to fill out a visa anymore. You can protect your time here in the United States, like living here. You don't have to consider your green card as a work permit and a travel permit. Now all of this is just included. Protection from removal, as I mentioned, you're not really subject to immigration like law enforcement or immigration court anymore. And other benefits, you can do immigration, like if you want to petition someone else, you can do so much faster. You're eligible for federal jobs, and most USCIS officers, USCIS being the agency that grants the benefits, like that grants green cards, grants work permits, any like a lot of immigration benefits. A lot of those workers used to be immigrants who now want to give back. So I'd say the majority of them are immigrants who naturalized. So citizens are eligible for federal jobs. They can do jury service, which is our civic duty. I know it sounds really boring, and like when you're in it, you want to do anything you can to get out of it. But maybe it's just me being biased. Yeah, I was just like, I never get selected, but maybe it's just me being biased. But it's our civic duty. We should be excited to be able to affect the outcome of someone's life. And I just watched 12 Angry Men last week, and it holds up. I highly recommend it. It's actually like a surprisingly good movie, even though it's all in the same room. Really good. It's in black and white. And you can run for office, so go out there, make a change. I mean, as we all saw this week, Zohran Mamdani won his election for mayor of New York, and he was an immigrant as well. He naturalized 8 years ago. So you see the impact that something like this can have. There are also tax and estate advantages, access to some benefits and grants, and campaign contributions. So with that said, let's talk about some of the most common routes of how people get to citizenship. As a reminder, first things first, for someone who is not a resident, they have to apply for their residency first, and then to become a lawful permanent resident, a green card holder, and then citizenship. If you have undocumented friends or friends who are immigrants, I'm sure they've all been told at some point, why don't you just apply for citizenship? Well, there's that step in between first. You have to get your green card first. I'd say that really is the hardest part. After you're a green card holder, citizenship is much easier. So with that said, first, get your green card or lawful permanent resident status, and we're going to be using a lot of abbreviations throughout. LPR, lawful permanent residence, USC, US citizen. So if you ever see any abbreviations you may not recognize, just let me know or raise your hand. I'm happy to answer. So some green card holders, they have to have their green card for 5 years, and then they can apply for citizenship. Others, if they're married to a US citizen, have to wait 3 years. And then there are some who only have to wait 1 year, typically like if they're in the military. And there are, the form that lets you do this is the form N-400. That's the application for naturalization. But if you are, sorry, I'm gonna cover this very quickly. If you, so yeah, most of these people have to apply for citizenship using the N-400. But if you are a child under the age of 18, you may apply for the N600 or the N600K. So the difference being, you know, if someone is living outside of the United States and their child trying to naturalize from outside the United States, it'd be the N400K, N600K versus the regular N600 if they are here in the US. So for the reason I bring up those side ones is because we don't want to try naturalizing a child who's been here, like who's under age 18, who's been living here for 5 years. I just want to make sure that from the outset we are providing the correct route. So if they are under age 18, different rules apply. So with that said, let's go over how a person becomes eligible for naturalization. I'm not sure how much immigration experience is here in the room, but generally for immigration, when we are screening people, we're just trying to see if they meet the requirements. Like there's just a list of requirements to get there, and there is a list of things that make someone ineligible for that benefit. And that's true generally across the board for any immigration benefit. It's just a list of requirements to get that benefit and a list of red flags or disqualifying factors that make you ineligible. So one of the first things they look for is your continuous residence, so that you have been living here in the US. So if you are applying generally eligible, it would be for 5 years of living here, versus if you are applying through a US citizen spouse or because a US citizen spouse petitioned you, it would be showing that you lived here for the last 3 years. Now, not everyone lives here the entire time. Part of the benefit of being a green card holder is that you get to travel. So here, one of the largest red flags is making sure that they did not spend more than 6 months out of the year outside of the United States. Like, worded differently, we just want to make sure that they spend more time in the United States than outside of the United States. So if it's been more than 6 months but less than a year, we can still argue that they plan on staying here, like they totally intend to stay here in the United States. But if it's been over a year outside of the US, automatically we probably can't help them out unless more than 5 years have passed since that trip, or they had a special exception, like they were in the military and they had to do this. So generally, we need to make sure that they did not break continuous residence. And the reason being is that if the US government is giving you a green card, is making you a lawful permanent resident, they want to make sure you actually want to reside here in the United States. That's the reason why they have this requirement. And then for both of these, like making sure that you've been here either for 5 years or 3 years, the earliest that you can file is like 90 days before the 5-year mark or 90 days before the 3-year mark. That's the earliest that you can file. Pretty sure I've skipped over something.
The M470?
Let's see. We're going from A to C.
Oh.
I don't know. It'll come to me though. So, another requirement that's super important is good moral character. And this is kind of built into most immigration benefits, but the US government does not want to give benefits to someone that they consider to be a bad person, which, kind of makes sense. For this, like to prove that you are a good person, you may have to provide documents, like as if you had to prove to a complete stranger, yes, I'm a good person, here are the documents to prove it. Like, because they're not gonna take the time to get to know you, so you have to do it through your documents. So, this one is especially important nowadays because this administration is being much more strict with regards to good moral character, so much so that they even want to talk to your employers or to your neighbors. This was like a rule way back in the 1990s where they could go and do that. But I feel like people just had more time back then. Nowadays, if that will just delay things. So if you want to make things easier for the applicant so they get a decision sooner, and make things easier for the USCIS officer as well, providing ahead of time when filing a letter from your employer or a letter from your neighbors, that could save everyone time. And our philosophy here is the easier that we make it for the case to get approved, then the more likely it is that they're going to approve the case. So For this, they're generally looking at the last 5 years, making sure that you don't have anything bad on your record for the last 5 years. So, if let's say someone got a DUI on their record or a crime that would make them a little ineligible, we want to make sure that at least 5 years have passed before they even apply. Because here it's more about when they apply and making sure they are completely eligible at the time of filing rather than at the time of the interview, because they can still get denied even at that stage. So there are some things that just make a person automatically disqualified, cannot get citizenship at all, and that would be, if they've committed murder, aggravated felony, which, rightfully so, right? I think those are one of the things we can all agree upon. There are other issues as well. So if they have a CIMT, which is a crime involving moral turpitude, or controlled substances. So if that occurred during the last 5 years prior to applying, then that is a big issue. You may ask them not to apply or to wait a little bit prior to that. So a CIMT, just kind of skipped right over that. A crime involving moral turpitude is one in which the government is going to presume or just assumes that you're not a good person if you have that on your record. A lot of those are the most common ones being theft crimes, lots of drug charges, especially in immigration. The government makes a huge deal even about like small, harmless, victimless drug charges, but something to be aware of. And then there's all sorts of other ones that make it less likely, we should ask them to wait 5 years after the conviction date prior to applying. So such as if they've been in jail for over 180 days, if they provided false testimony, prostitution, trafficking, polygamy, significant gambling, habitual drunkenness, failure to support dependents. So if they, for these last few that I just explained, that's the stuff that people presume you're not a good person if you've done that. And yes, question.
What if they were trafficked?
If
or they were involved in prostitution because they were trafficked?
That is a good question. That's actually a path towards lawful permanent resident status, if that is what occurred. Here they're just making sure that they weren't the person committing that.
They weren't the person orchestrating it.
Exactly.
Got it.
So if they weren't the ones in charge of or masterminding or in any way helping out with trafficking, so they just want to make sure that you're not the one orchestrating it. If you are the victim here, that is different, and they do take that into account. Okay. And for all of this, it is very much a totality of the circumstances. They're looking into all of that together prior to making a decision. But excellent question. But here, if these are just the things that generally the American government, American society considers probably not an indicator that you're a good person, probably an indicator that you might be a bad person if you are a habitual drunk, or if you're always committing illegal gambling, or if you're not paying your child support or supporting your dependents. So these are all things we just want to keep in mind, and it's always good to have just a long list of questions to ask during the screening process, just to make sure these aren't issues that come up. And then, so even this last one, tax non-compliance, they want to make sure that you've been paying your taxes for the last 5 years. Even if you, and sometimes even just being on a payment plan is perfectly fine. But these are things we want to ask them about, just to see if maybe these are cases we should refer over, to see if they have a path towards correcting these things. But as of up till now, any questions? Sounds good. Oh, I'm missing something. But let's see. So here are some more complicated ones. I don't know if we should get into these, because these are typically the ones we won't see too often. But if it is a marriage-based case and the person is overseas, that makes it much more complicated, and typically not ones we're going to see at workshops here, because they're here and not overseas. So we're going to go ahead and skip that one, but just so you know, this is some stuff that comes up and we also have to think about. And then basically what I was talking about earlier, if it is a child under the age of 18, just keep that in mind. That's a separate process, different than what we are generally talking about here. Like all of this is, and most of the workshops we'll be doing are for the N400 versus, but if you see that the person that needs help is under age 18, just keep that in mind. Okay, separate process. They're a minor, they do another form. All right, and then, you know how I was mentioning that here they want to give citizenship to people who they consider to be good people. Another thing that the government looks into is whether or not this person applied for selective service. So selective service is something everyone has to do regardless of their immigration status between the ages of 18 to 26. So, and if they're a male. If they're a male between ages 18 and 26 who are here in the U.S., doesn't matter what their status was, you know, anyone from either if they're undocumented or already a U.S. citizen, if they're a male here in the U.S., physically in the U.S., they have to apply for selective service. They do take that into account, and if it's, you know, they do take that into account and they may use that against you if you did not apply for selective service within the last 5 years. So what that means is if you are assisting a gentleman and they are like anywhere from 26 to 31 and they didn't apply for it, that's a red flag and maybe we should consider asking them to wait a little bit. But if they are over 31, nothing to worry about. It's already past the 5-year window, so generally they're still okay to continue. The worst that would happen is that they will ask them why they didn't apply, and from there they can explain. Like, there's a whole bunch of reasons they can give. Maybe they just didn't even know this was a requirement. No one told them. They can explain that, you know, they didn't do this consciously. They never would have. If they knew, they would have applied. Stuff like that. And then last thing I have to mention is that yes, we're talking about good moral character, and here we're talking about like the last 5 years, but please keep in mind that USCIS does have the ability to look beyond those 5 years, and they can take that into account. So if it was something especially egregious, we just want to make sure they keep that in mind. Like, they can look into that. So there are things they can do to minimize that risk, such as if it's a crime, for example, maybe post-conviction relief or expunging it. So there are certain reliefs they can take to just try to make their record look better prior to applying, if we think it's going to be an issue, or, you know, if we're reviewing the case, they're talking to us about it, and even we're like, oh, that does seem kind of bad. There are things they can do.
I have a quick question regarding the age. If they're still in the age gap, are they still able to apply for the military and stuff like that, or
Well, what do you mean?
within when they're in the age gap and they haven't applied and they're trying to naturalize?
Mm-hmm.
Are they still able to apply for the military or register?
I think once they become a lawful permanent resident, then they can apply. What do you mean by the age gap?
The 2018 to 25, if they're in that age.
If they're within that gap, like within 18 to 25, they can apply. So, and they should apply.
And it's not gonna look bad in the application?
No, as long as they do apply, because all they're asking is if you were a male between ages 18 to 26, did you apply for selective service? So long as they are within that range and they do apply, we are looking good.
Okay.
Yeah. So here, highly encouraged.
Okay.
Let's see. So yeah. With that said, those are all the requirements. I'm sure I skipped one. It will come back. It will come to me, and I'll let you know. But in the meantime, let's just go over, give you a brief overview of what the process looks like in order to become, to help them out become a citizen. So, first things first, we are screening. We want to determine that they actually are eligible, that they actually meet the criteria to become a citizen. Up next, once we've determined that they actually are eligible, we are preparing the application for them. So the application can either be prepared online or through paper filing. So if it is online, of course, it is much faster. It may even be a little cheaper by like $50, but I gotta double check that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is. Yeah, the only thing with online is they can't do the fee waivers. So we have
Ah.
clients who use Medi-Cal for the fee waiver. So that's one reason why we don't do online.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them will come in with their Medi-Cal to apply for the fee waiver.
Oh, super
Yeah,
important
but
point.
it is cheaper. You know, if someone doesn't have Medi-Cal, it is cheaper for them to file online.
Makes sense. So yeah, my recommendation is paper filing, but and especially when we are assisting people, typically it will be done on paper, just because a lot of folks aren't very tech savvy. It is pretty difficult to get them to verify what they have to. I personally, I think is that for on their end, it is as easy as creating a Facebook account, like just creating an account with my USCIS, and then inputting a passcode and approving everything. But for a lot of people, they hear the word technology or they see that it's online and they shut down. So we can always do the tried and true method, which is paper filing, which does work for people for as long as this process has been available. It's been through paper, so we can continue with that. We are so for all of immigration, no matter what the benefit is, it's usually going to be through information and documents. So the information is put on the forms, and they already have standardized like what they are looking for, what they need, and it mirrors the eligibility requirements. So it's going to be helping them fill out forms and then collecting documents to prove the requirements or like evidence. So when we are helping them fill out the forms, we're just getting their information, filling out the information onto the forms, and then making sure that they collect the documents. For these documents, there are checklists that they can use to just make sure they've collected all the documents. And typically we do give them a checklist either before the workshops, just to make sure they're bringing everything with them. But even then, don't count on them having everything. It really is up to us to make sure that everything is there. We're just that second set of eyes. So we prepare the packets, make sure we have the filing fees. As a reminder, as of October, they are no longer accepting money orders. So it's gonna have to be either through two separate forms. It is the N1650 or the G1650 or the G1450. It is either using your bank account information, so like your routing number, your account number, or credit card information. But regardless of whichever one it is, we want to make sure they have enough funds to be able to pay it. We don't want it getting rejected once it gets to USCIS and then sent back. So now it's not only one form, the N400, it's two, either the whichever way you're gonna be paying for it, or they're gonna be paying for it. So it is, after we have completed everything, we have all the forms we filled out, we have all the documents, then we go ahead and mail it out. So we send out the application over to USCIS. And on the USCIS website, if you look up like N400, it'll tell you like what address to send it to. This is ultimately a benefit for the public. So USCIS and the government do try to make things as easy as possible. Like they do have instructions and they do have like where to fill it out to, making sure it's the right edition, all of that good stuff. But it's still immigration. It's still the second most complicated or complex area of law, like second to tax law. And it's still a law at the end of the day, and law is just it's just a formal speak, or it's just a different almost a different language for the sake of making sure attorneys can get money for this. So it is a little complicated. But yeah, after it has been submitted and arrived at USCIS, there's actually another form that you can use too, so that USCIS gives them a notification once it's been received. And that's always a big relief for them. Typically, once we mail it out, we will give them a tracking number just so they can see it made it safely all the way to USCIS. The packet didn't bounce. But sometimes it's even more reassuring for USCIS to send them an email or a text message letting them know that it's been received, it's with them now. And but even if that's not filled out, they'll still give them a receipt. It will take 3 to 5 weeks, but they'll still get a receipt notice. So that's just USCIS saying we've accepted your application and now we're giving you a tracking number as well. It's called a receipt number. The receipt number is basically like a tracking number where they can put it on the website and they can check from there how to check the status of the case. And there are different statuses, but week to week they can check. But if you're telling them about this, encourage them to not check it daily or multiple times a day. Even just once a week is totally fine, because there are people who do go crazy checking it multiple times per day, and it's not changing daily. Immigration just moves at a snail's pace just because of how many people go through this system. So much so that so many people go through this system that USCIS is mostly funded by the filing fees rather than money from the government or Congress and their appropriations bill. That's how many people are going through this system that they can keep up or uphold their agency of 20,000 people worldwide? Yeah, so it's a lot of people just paid for by or being employed through filing fees. Let's see, what else? And then they are going to be waiting, months. I think at this moment, maybe 8+ months, 8 to 10 months. But typically, you just want to give them a wide range just to set their expectations. But there is a website where you can see the general processing times for USCIS, and it'll tell you this processing center or this location is taking 8 months, or 80% of the cases are taking 8 months. It's not always accurate, it's very inaccurate. And I think it's just an estimate so that when people call asking about their case, USCIS can tell them to go away. Don't call us until after this time has passed, after the stated times there have passed. But yeah, from there on out, they're just waiting. They may have to attend a biometrics appointment just so the government can run a background check on them. So it'll be taking their fingerprints, their photo, their signature, just so USCIS can look into their background, see if they have any immigration violations, criminal violations, anything that, they're doing their research or their due diligence as well, making sure that this person does deserve their benefits. But that doesn't always happen. If they got their fingerprints taken within the last 2 years, they might just reuse those again. And then after the biometrics, or after the wait, they will get interview notice. And the interview notice gives them a heads up on this day at this time. We have reserved it for you for a naturalization interview. And we'll discuss what that looks like in a bit. Yeah, after the naturalization interview, they go attend the interview. This one, it's mandatory. There are other types of USCIS interviews that do get waived, but this really isn't one of those. They have to do the exam that goes along with it, which we'll discuss in a second. And then after that, it's just waiting. After the interview, it's just waiting for the decision and then the oath ceremony. And at the oath ceremony, that's when they become a U.S. citizen. A lot of people get it done the same day, but it all depends on the location where it's being done. So for example, Los Angeles does them all on the same day because it's a huge area with plenty of space and they have the employees for all of that. But a lot of locations will ask you to wait a few weeks. But yeah, that's just a general overview, even though I feel like we could end it there. But we'll keep going and just to make sure you guys have more information. But yes, question.
Okay, so one of the requirements wasn't to make sure that their green card is not expired, I saw. So what if their green card is expired? Are they able to go through this process, or do we need to do those in parallel? Because their LPR doesn't expire, but the green card can, right?
That's exactly right, yes. So, yeah, absolutely. So, once a person becomes a lawful permanent resident, gets a green card, they are always a resident. They're always going to remain a lawful permanent resident unless a judge takes it away, unless they sign a form saying that they are okay, giving away their status, or until they become a citizen themselves, or unless they just don't want to be like here in the U.S. anymore. So, but for most people, that means that once a resident, always a resident, but their card itself does have an expiration date and it can expire. That doesn't mean they are no longer a resident. It is like your passport. Even if your passport expires, that just means you can't use the passport itself, but you are still a citizen of that country. And then for, what else would be important to add here? But yeah, to answer your question, even though the card itself is expired, we typically, like it's mostly recommended for them to submit the renewal, like for the green card renewal, and then apply for citizenship. There are some people who, and that's just to have everything in order and make sure there's nothing like no holes they could point to or any reasons for denial. So here our recommendation is always renew your green card first and then apply for citizenship. There are some people who have a 2-year green card, and then probably the following year they may be able to apply for citizenship, but they get the 2-year green card. That is a conditional green card. So a conditional green card is like usually for marriage-based cases where they've been married, like they gave them the green card for less than 2 years, or they gave them the green card even though they've only been married for less than 2 years. And that is because USCIS is still a little suspicious of them. So they're getting a green card through marriage, and the most important thing for that route is just making sure that there is no fraud going on, that their marriage is actually in good faith, like one party didn't one party didn't pay the other party for a green card or for benefits. So, and I think the going rate for that now is like $40,000. Just throwing that out there as educational purposes. But yeah, so it's just making sure that no one paid, like they actually did intend to combine their lives together, get married. So because they got that, even though they've only been married for less than 2 years, USCIS just wants to check up on them 2 years down the line and make sure that they made the right decision. And those are typically pretty easy interviews. I once went with someone where the wife was pregnant, and so we walked in together, they confirmed our identities, and then we walked out because no one gets pregnant for fraudulent reasons. That's a that's a very big commitment.
Yeah.
So in so in those kind of cases, it's very possible that the green card is going to expire first because you only got it for 2 years, and you have to file for removal of conditions. But nowadays the government is taking so long that they're going to give you an extension letter. So a letter saying that your green card in combination with that letter is still valid for like 24 or 48 more months. I think 24 more months. At least enough time for you to be able to apply for removal of conditions. For citizenship the following year.
What if the person whose green card expired has had a green card for like 20, 30 years, and so they just like mix up the dates or something?
Yeah.
So it's like that kind of situation where they're clearly not here on marriage. They can just go with pathway 1, but would we just like have them apply anyways? Because like why would they renew their green card for the umpteenth time when they could just naturalize?
Oh, I hear that. So if it's expired, then we do want them to apply again for a renewal, or just in general renew their green card. Otherwise, if they've been here and they've been renewing it for like 20, 30 years, and now they want to apply for citizenship, as long as the green card's valid, it shouldn't be an issue. But in general, we want to make sure all of their documentation is valid and up to date. So here, only if, I guess there's no real rule of thumb here. In general, just making sure everything's valid and nothing's expired that we are presenting, and even including like driver's licenses or IDs, for example. Yeah.
It's like a gray area. Like if that's the only reason to not have them apply, if their application is strong, it's kind of like.
I hear that, and yeah, it is a little tough just because of how much the green card renewal times have exploded. So it used to be pretty quick, like 1 to 2 months, but now it's 8+ months.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
think
the
as-
same amount of time.
Yeah. So, but still, even in those, because before it used to be much easier to just recommend like, oh, just send the I-90, the renewal application. You'll get your green card back, like the updated one in like 1 to 2 months, and that was pretty quick. So it was kind of painless to be like, oh, let's just do this very quickly. Now you have everything up to date. You are all set. Nothing to worry about. Please naturalize. But with
This administration.
yeah, with this administration and how much it's just exploded in wait time, like the wait time has exploded, and now it's like 8+ months to be able to renew the green card. Now we do really, it hurts to recommend it and be like, oh, just wait almost a year prior to applying, like almost an extra year. But it is still the best course of action, just to make sure all our T's are crossed, I's are dotted. Like making sure all the details, like there's no detail that would negatively affect them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, so far, any other questions? Okay, so as I promised, we're going to go over the exam very quickly. So for the exam to naturalize is made up of 2 parts. It is an English exam and a civics exam. So for English, they just want to make sure that you can speak, read, and write English. And I don't know why it's a requirement. We don't officially have English as an official language. There was a executive memo about it, but that's not worth much. That's just a memo. There was an executive order, but that's just a memo for the executive branch of the government. That doesn't really apply to all of us. But still, so to this day, I still contend there's no official language English is not the official language of the United States, but it is one of the requirements to naturalize. I don't know why that's the case, but here all they're testing is just making sure that they can read, write, and speak English. And this is the part that prevents a lot of people from applying. So even if they are married to a U.S. citizen, they can apply right away, like within 3 years, faster than most. This could still be the wall or the hurdle that they need to overcome. And this might be why people wait years for, decades even, because there are some exceptions where if you've been here for, if you're over age 50 and have been a resident for 20 years, then we'll give you a break with the English part of it. But yeah, so just so you're aware, this is usually the largest hurdle. But I do want to reassure you, it is easier than most people think. Most people think that they have to have a mastery of the English language and speak eloquently, where it's not really the case. It is, so let's break it down. For the reading and writing part, they are going to give you a sentence about the government, such as Independence Day is on 4th of July, or the Capitol is in Washington, D.C., and you either have to just read it out loud or write it. So if they give you that sentence, we pay our taxes on April 15th. If they give you that sentence, you can read it out loud, or if they told you that sentence, you would just write it down. And it's usually government related, so there are vocab packets you can start learning, how to prepare. So because some of those words do even trip me out. Independence, how many E's are in that? So there are words to practice, but it's usually government related vocab. And then for speaking, they're gonna do the interview in English, and as long as you're keeping up with them, as long as you're responding to them in English as well, that counts for the speaking portion of it. So that is the English part of it all. And there it's just if you were trying to help them with mock interviews, it's just making sure that all of it is in English, and that or if you're helping them prepare for it, it's just reading to them the questions in English, and then making sure they're understanding what the concept is, what they were asking. And there are plenty of videos on YouTube explaining all of this and going over it. I think at some point I should create a resource list where they can see those YouTube videos and go over them with them. And then also they have to do the civics exam in English as well. So the civics exam, it is a 128 question test bank where there will be asked 20 questions total. or up to 20 questions from those 128 questions. As long as they get 12 out of 20 correct, they passed. It used to only be a 100 question test bank, and they only had to get 6 out of 10 correct. This administration changed it. They want to make it more difficult. I guess they don't want people to vote for some reason. I don't know why. I thought he won the popular vote. But here, for these new additional questions, half of the answers to them are the president. So it's not, yeah.
That's what I said. I was like, if Trump is rewriting this, it's all gonna be from like a MAGA Trump perspective. So it's actually gonna just be, oh, what are their core values?
Super on brand, like
Yeah.
nothing surprising.
Did you guys see the book? His face is on it.
Oh.
There's a book. There's a like a
Wait, is
girl's
it-
word book. Yeah.
12 out of 20 is the new number?
Yup.
His AI picture.
No way. It's an
Yeah.
AI picture?
Yeah, it's an AI picture. It's so creepy. It's the creepiest thing, but yeah. But they knew we could do it. That's why they doubled this up.
Yeah. We're living in such weird times. But yeah, so now instead of 100 questions, it's 128. And instead of asking potentially 10 out of those 100, it's 20 out of those 128. And here, but it's still 60%. They just need 12 out of 20. So if they get the first 12 correct, then they pass. There's no need to keep asking more questions because they already got a passing score.
Also, those questions are asked verbally?
Yes, and in English, so they have to know how to respond to them in English.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Before, my recommendation used to be just watch Hamilton a few times and then go through the questions, have someone else practice with you. That's typically it because it's all like American history, branches of government, and yeah, just the civics in general.
Well, now they ask like who's the current Speaker of the House and who's the last like appointed Supreme Justice. Or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is a good point. There are a lot that you can just memorize and be able to answer, but there are some that change. They'll be like, who is your senator? Who is the president or vice president? So there are some that do change, and it'll be like vary depending on where you're located. But that's the only thing. Aside from that, all the other ones, and even those, you know, they don't change from day to day. So those can be memorized and, you know, very unlikely to change within the like time that you are studying for that process. And honestly, with the for most people, they are okay to start studying once they filed, because that's typically enough time to learn all of this.
Next, quick question. Is there a limit of how many times they could quiz or take that test?
I think 3 is the limit. I have been in places where just one of those instances is like them trying like 4 times, and it's just a super nice officer who like really is just like, I believe in you, you got this, hang in there. Like it's just whenever the USCIS officers are being super extra nice. But in most cases, if someone doesn't pass that first time, they will just be rescheduled to take it again at a future date, like maybe a few months down the line whenever they have availability. And then after failing, it's just about applying again.
Yeah, because I don't know if I heard somewhere that they're only allowed 2 times. I don't know if they want to pass it into law, then just take the test twice, and then if you don't pass it, that's it. I don't know if I'm wrong or right, but I think I heard that.
I'm gonna look into
somewhere.
that.
Yeah.
Because yeah, that would also be like, all right, now you can never apply for anything. You're always gonna be a resident for
Right.
life because you didn't pass it the second time.
Yeah, I can't
I'm looking into
remember
that.
where I heard that. I can't remember.
What we've seen here is that they just get 2 shots. That's it.
Mm.
There was one rare occasion where this woman was promised by an officer to take it a 3rd time, but then she didn't, like she received the notice that she just needed to reapply. So
Okay.
I would say that it's twice, depending, I guess, on the discretion of the officer as per Ivan, but we haven't seen it yet a 3rd time, so.
Let's hope.
Yeah, the good folks over at the Chatsworth
That's
Service
nice.
Center are super nice. So over there was one officer who was like helping an elderly gentleman. He's just like, all right, let's go for a 4th time. You got this. And the guy was just like, no, I don't think I have this. And he, yeah. But there are, you know, the officers are people too. Some are much nicer than others, but for the most part,
I would say I like Chatsworth as well.
Yeah. I always recommend it whenever I have a chance.
I have a naive question.
Yeah.
USCIS is in a completely different part than ICE, correct?
Yes.
So they have no relation to each other?
Correct. Technically. So there is a I should pull it up, but there is a whole agency list or like a really good diagram that breaks up the different departments.
Uh-huh.
And so you you'll see like the Department of Homeland Security, and it's over that as the umbrella agency, and underneath there would be I want to say USCIS too, and then ICE will be there too, but they're like different agencies.
Mm-hmm.
So way back in the day, prior to 2001, there used to be just one agency called the INS, the Immigration Naturalization Services.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Yeah, and then it later got broken down into separate agencies, with ICE being like the enforcement arm,
Mm-hmm.
and USCIS being like the reviewing and just giving benefits arm of the agency. So it just they are related, but they are different agencies. They don't really communicate very well with one another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they typically don't really involve one another too much.
So essentially the training practices to be in one are different than the other.
Yes, yeah.
And the requirements for training and stuff like that. So people in USCIS have a different requirement to be able to be an agent in the first place, so they probably can't be hired if they have explicit hatred towards immigrants.
Yes. I think every once in a while people sneak by, but for the most part, the majority of people who work over at USCIS either were immigrants themselves who naturalized, or attorneys or people who got their law degrees who no longer wanted to be attorneys and are working there instead.
Mm-hmm.
But there are people who hate their job and hate the people that they help,
Yeah,
and
there's
that
always,
happens.
that always happens, even in like the medical career. But it's like they have certain requirements where it's like ICE is actively attracting people like that who actually don't know how to do that job.
Yeah, and then there's ICE where there's no requirements, even though the age requirements are being taken away.
The age requirements?
I think so, yeah. Like their standards are so low.
They're very low.
They're not even passing their standards out there. Like a lot of them.
And that's why the firing is a little scary, because we don't know like what this administration is intending to do, right? I think that's the fear behind the whole change of administration right now.
Yeah, they're not even like passing drug tests or anything, like their training itself is so
Criminal
low.
background.
Yeah.
I know an attorney that waited over a year just to be hired, and they were like knocking on her. They were vetting her like everywhere.
Dang.
And so I'm,
Yeah.
curious to see what kind of people they bring in.
Yeah.
Scary.
And my crackpot conspiracy theory, like really out there, is that like some of them are cartel members who were brought over just explicitly for this. Because you know how like Trump made a deal with El Chapo and like brought his wife over. That's just one of my like really, really outlandish theories. We'll see in a few years.
Not a bad one.
Yeah.
What we're gonna see, actually, my conspiracy theory is, no, I have a good one, it's not, it's almost factual, because you know how they got Charlie Kirk? Well, then they just assassinated Carlos Manso.
Oh yeah.
He's Carlos and
yeah.
also Charlie, but this was what happened weird to me last night. I went home and I was watching like the different videos, but if you look at the different videos when they're in like Congress, in the House, they're like, women are going at it just like how they were going for Charlie Kirk, but it's like Las Mexicanas, and then they had his wife speaking, and I promise you it would have been like a Mexican Erica Kirk, the way she was speaking about the assassination. So watch it. So I think they're gonna do like the cartels that's what they were saying, like we need to go for the cartels. So I think that's gonna be the agenda for them to go into Mexico now, like how they did with Hamas. That's my conspiracy theory.
Anything to implement martial law, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Scary.
No, that's wild. But then we could definitely talk about this for hours. But we're going back to this, unless anyone has any questions or any other cool conspiracy theories.
Rewrite tomorrow.
Yeah.
We should start tomorrow.
Right, tomorrow.
But yeah, so there are some exceptions where you don't have to take the English exam, or where you take an easier civics exam as well. So for these first two, it's just to avoid the English exam. It's either if you have been a resident for, if you are over age 50 and have been a green card holder for 20 years, or if you're over age 55 and have been a green card holder for 15 years. The way I remember is just that they both add up to 70. So, every once in a while, in case you get asked or in case you're
that's
quick
a
about
good
it,
one.
they both add up to 70. And then there is another one where you can take an easier version of the civics exam and in your native tongue. And typically, USCIS will provide the interpreter or they'll have someone over the phone. I believe nowadays they might not have as many interpreters, or something got cut there where you may have to provide your own interpreter. So it's just something to keep in mind. But those are for people who have been here who are over age 65 and have been a resident for 20 years. So these are some of the exceptions, and it's just all based on your age and how long you've been a resident. There are also some accommodations for folks with disabilities, such as medical exceptions and disability accommodations.
So does that, the N648, does that mean we have to fill out a different form for them?
It is, and that's not one that we should really be filling out.
Oh, it's a doctor, right?
Yeah. So this is one where we leave it to licensed USCIS approved professionals to fill that one out. So we can't really help out with that, but it is something to keep in mind. Like, all right, this person might need a accommodation. Let's see if we can ask someone about it. Oh, question?
Can you explain a little bit about what the change is with the medical exemption? Like if they're kind of judging people more harshly now on the disability form?
I'm not sure. It's not nothing I've run into these days. Do you have any insight on it?
Yeah, so there was an update on medical exemptions. They, I don't know, like re-summarized it or reframed everything. So they're basically telling everyone that, like, warning, be careful if you fill this out, like we're gonna check on it. We're gonna make sure that you are eligible based on this disability.
They have to verify
Yeah.
the diagnosis, right? I think.
Like they're
Yeah.
judging the exam a little bit more harshly.
Gotcha. Oh, that's really good to know. And in general, one of the things I just want to bring up with regards to this administration's supposed like threats or more strict policies is all they're really doing is just saying we're gonna do the work that we said we're gonna do anyway. Like they're just supposedly just like it sounds harsh, and if you ever look at the USCIS Instagram, like it sounds like they're like being really strict about it. But all of these were already the requirements on paper.
Yeah, they're just
Like-
emboldening the harsher.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
here if they're saying that we're gonna verify your medical condition, or we're gonna verify that there's no marriage fraud, like yeah, that's what we expected
They're
anyway.
supposed to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and here as legal advocates, we're not trying to cut any corners. We want to make sure like we're vetting. This is the stuff we're vetting for too. So all that's to say they're strict or more harsh rhetoric is just that. It's just rhetoric. Like that's what we expected for them to do anyway. All right, so what are we doing here? I guess this is just a quick checklist on screening. So when we are screening someone, this is the initial conversation, considered like a consultation, but just the first conversation that we're having, just to make sure they're even eligible for this process. So we want to see what way are they getting their citizenship? Like, are they residents? Are they eligible for it? Do they meet the time requirement? Good moral character? Have they been here? So first things first, just confirming why it is that they are here. Like, are they here at the right process? Is this the right location for them? Sometimes people wind up in the wrong place. And a lot of people don't know, like, just naturally what their requirements are. I think the vast majority of people don't really know much about immigration in the first place. That's why, they get told, like, oh, just apply for citizenship. We also want to just confirm, like, while we are there, ideally they'd have their green cards with them, because technically they're always supposed to have their green cards with them. That's the law. Like, it is a very seldomly enforced law that you have to have your green card on you at all times. Otherwise, it is a fine. And just over in Chicago, they finally started fining people, which is like mind blowing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Saw that.
It's one of those laws that's it's a law on paper, but in real life, it hardly ever gets enforced. But now I guess we're finally seeing some enforcement.
What did the mayor say? I follow him on Instagram. I love him.
I know, he's been cool. He's been like one of my favorite personalities out of all of this. I don't know what he said about like the enforcement of that, like people getting ticketed like $130 for not having their green card on them, because technically it is a crime to not have it on you. I don't know what he said about that specifically, but I have been loving all his rhetoric and like how he's always fighting back. It's been great to see.
Yeah.
What about if some, like, just a question of mine, what if, for example, a green card holder, like in Chicago or anywhere else, is approached by immigration and they try to exercise their right, like, I do not want to show you anything, I don't want to discuss my status, can they still get fined if, like, the officer, whoever it is, like, assumes they're a green card holder but doesn't want to show their green card?
Probably.
Oh,
So,
wow.
for this process, they are probably going to get detained, and if for some reason, while detained or while stopped, because right now they're just trying to detain and stop as many people as possible. If during that process, while detained and stopped, they are searched and somehow they just don't see the green card, but they verify through their own systems that like, oh yeah, he's a resident, we're gonna let him go eventually. Because they didn't see it, they can still be fined. Up to them to contest it and be like, oh well, I did have it, but they're gonna be contesting it with ICE, because ICE is the enforcement arm of the government. So it's unlikely to go anywhere. But yeah, it is something they can still fight and be like, oh, but I did have it on me, I just didn't want to show it to them. But that's like refusing to identify yourself with a police officer. Like it's probably just not gonna go well.
Yeah, it doesn't help their moral character.
Yeah, and that's gonna be counted against them as like not wanting to comply with like what's required of you for immigration agents from the immigration agency. And in this case, we don't want things being used against folks.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you seen those tow trucks coming around and they follow around ICE cars?
Yeah.
ICE cars typically park illegally, and so they'll just go and pick up the car when they're going to try to grab somebody, and so they can't do anything, and then the community comes in.
My heroes, seriously. But yeah, even them, but they've been going after those too.
Yeah, they
Thank
get
you for
their
mentioning
license
that.
revoked.
That was important. I think a lot of organizers were betting on, I'm a U.S. citizen, I will not address myself as a U.S. citizen to protect others. But now that we saw that in Chicago, it's kind of, it's pretty scary that they're enforcing that, just because when it comes to money, now people have to kind of like, well, am I willing to pay this fine and continue to pay these fines to help others? So it's pretty
Yeah, whole situation. But yeah, during this first initial conversation we're having with people to make sure that they're actually eligible for this process, that's a good time to check their documents and just confirm what they're saying, because a lot of people might not know a lot of these dates off the top of their head. So it's just, it's always just good to just verify while we are there. So verify the green card dates of expiration, make sure it's still not like currently expired at this moment. See the date, their trips, and just confirming more than anything, have you been outside of the country for more than 6 months out of the year, anytime in the last 5 years. It's a mouthful, but you can break it up just into, well, have you ever at any point been outside of the country the last 5 years?
Question.
Yeah, I actually had a question about that.
Yes.
Just like something I was curious about. So with the 6 months, how, like, if you had a client who stayed for more than 6 months, but this was like 10 years ago, like let's say that.
Yeah.
How do you address, like, do you still tell them they should apply for citizenship, or do you like include more documentation explaining why that was, or like is it gonna affect them as much?
Oh no. So, if they stayed outside of the U.S. for more than 6 months but less than a year, they're just presuming that they have abandoned their residence. Like they're just presuming like it just feels like you don't want to stay here anymore. That's why we gotta get rid of your green card, or that's why we can't let you naturalize, because it didn't feel like you were part of the club this entire time. But if it's been more than 5 years have passed, they don't really care too much because per the statute, in order like per the law, in order to naturalize, they're really just looking at the last 5 years.
Okay.
So it's all within that 5-year period. They can bring up stuff like prior to that, like it's USCIS, it's within their right, but it's just about explaining it away. Like,
Okay.
yeah. So, but it won't count against them, or it won't be used against them.
It's different from a crime then, basically. Like where a crime they would go back if it was like 5 years ago, more than 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That would be brought up more, but not this. So.
Yes. So yeah, exactly right. So for crimes, they can go back more than 5 years.
Yeah.
But at that point, it's more so like discretionary. Like, well, you committed this 5 years ago. That doesn't sit right with my soul. I kind of want to deny you now because I don't think you're a good person. But if it, but you could fight back against that, or you can show more evidence that you're a good person to
Right.
fight back against that.
Mhm.
But here, those last 5 years, super important.
That includes the taxes or?
Yeah, also
Okay.
taxes. We want to make sure that they are up to date on their taxes, that they don't owe any money to the government, and if they do, at least making sure they're on a payment plan. But typically even that is a little iffy these days. Ideally, completely up to date on their taxes, and they've been filing every year.
And I would say like we need to for sure like make sure that they get on a payment plan before even filing because it's so hard to get to the IRS to get
Yeah.
an appointment, to get a call in, so and we've taken that extra step and we just realized that this is something people have to do on their own even if it takes a while and then they come back.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say they don't have it like let's say they have it only the last 5 years, but the previous year they don't. It's still
Mhm.
fine or?
But like the 6th year they don't,
Right.
then they probably do owe taxes to the IRS, and then it's just making sure that they are going to pay it back. They'll probably be okay, but it can be used against them because it's like within the statutory period they were fine. But if it and USCIS doesn't really communicate that much with the IRS, so if they are if the person is providing their tax returns for the last 5 years, USCIS probably isn't gonna think twice about it or be like, well, let me look at their 6th year just to make sure, or like let me dig in further. They're just gonna see what's in front of them, which is just the taxes that the client is providing, or the whatever comes up on their background search. But the background searches are typically for immigration and criminal related matters.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and then aside from that, it's just making sure, do they have any arrests or any criminal related issues that might affect them? Did they owe child support, or did they apply for selective service? And also just, is this the right process for them? Or are they a child that might use another process?
If they owe child support, but like let's say they paid it off, would that show on there, or would they be okay with that?
It probably won't show, but they would have like maybe a divorce decree or some family law related documents, and that's where the officer could ask more questions.
Okay.
So even though it wouldn't show on like biometrics or a background search, it would come up in the documents that we'd be providing.
Okay, so it'd be
And-
good to add that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it's just making sure, okay, well, do they owe child support still? If they're up to date on their obligations, that's perfectly fine.
Okay.
But if they owe stuff, that's where we might have to screen or ask more questions,
Mhm.
see if they can pay everything out first before going to this process,
Right.
stuff like that. But this is the first conversation we want to have with them. There is no set script. We could come up with one for you, but no one just wants to talk to someone who's just going through a script with them. I think the most people will tolerate is a checklist, but no one wants to just be read off a script too. Yes.
Can you discuss a little bit more of selective service? Because here in the nonprofit world, I feel like everyone that needed to sign up for selective services that was a male didn't,
Mm-hmm.
but now they're over the age of 26.
Yeah.
Can you just explain that a little bit?
All right. So for selective service, it's everyone who is between the ages of 18 to 26 has to apply for it.
Yeah.
Like it's just mandatory. It's the law. It's basically you signing up and saying, yeah, I'll join the draft if I need to. And it's one of those things that either you did it or you did not. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't know if I did. Yeah, it's been such a long time that I don't remember signing up for it. Truthfully, maybe when you apply for colleges.
I mean, yeah, I was gonna ask, how do you know to apply? Do you go online? Do you get something through mail? Or?
Yeah, so there is a website online where you can go to apply and also get confirmation that you've applied. And I think for most, like for FAFSA and for a lot of other things, I think it's mandatory and they make you do it.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay,
Or
perfect.
for FAFSA.
From
they
what,
do.
yeah, that definitely for FAFSA, they'll ask like if you're a male, you need to select that you're gonna register.
Yeah.
From what we've seen, a lot of clients are older, so they'll say, I never got a letter, or they'll say I got a letter, but I had just arrived here. I didn't know any English, so I
Mhm.
didn't know what they were asking me, or I didn't know it was like mandatory.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
So
That's usually the situation like we find ourselves in, where they'll say I didn't know about it, or like I got something, but I didn't know what it meant. There was like a language barrier.
yeah. So for most people, you either did it or you did not. If you did, that's perfect. That is legally what they had to do, and they just have to get a confirmation that they did, and that you can print that out from the website. Like there's a selective service website where you can apply and you can get the confirmation page. If you didn't, then like I mentioned, it's only a problem if you're under age 31. Once you're 31 and older, then it doesn't really affect you anymore. But in the meantime, like if you want to naturalize and you're between ages 18 to 26 and you haven't, please do so. If you're between ages 26 and 31 and you didn't apply, it may be too late. So for them, it's just about waiting until they turn 31, where it's not really an issue. Aside from that, I don't really know if there's any other exceptions other than just waiting for the statutory 5-year period to pass. But yeah, that's typically how selective service is handled. Any other questions?
Could they get away, because like there's that thing in the military where like if you have flat feet, like they don't allow you, like they get away with like saying that, like
Or asthma.
Yeah.
asthma or something like that.
So they still have to register, and then it's just saying like, oh, all right, in case there's a draft, I'm there.
So it's just about registering.
Yes, it's just about registering.
Okay.
And then in case of a draft, heavens forbid,
Then they need
then
an
it's just
excuse.
like,
Okay.
yeah, then you shoot yourself in the foot or whatever Trump did to escape it. But yeah. So that's the initial conversation we want to have with them. We also just want to confirm, well, this part was already included, just confirming that they actually were here for the amount of time that they needed to be. For that, just I guess another thing to add is, this would just be being overly thorough, but you actually can get a FOIA to check their entries and exits. So the government is keeping track of us at all times, and we live in a surveillance state, and they keep track of our records of our entries and exits, and it's wild the amount of data they collect. But if you are ever talking to someone who isn't sure about the dates they exited and entered, doesn't even know, I can't even give you an estimate, you can always recommend them to get a FOIA from CBP, and they're the ones who keep track of your exits and your entries. There are some that they may be missing, so there may be some records that you won't be able to find, such as when you exited, let's say, to Mexico, and they don't really keep track of your exits like when you're walking across. But that's just for them to fill in the blank there. And it reduces the amount of guessing they have to do. But it just makes it take longer. Yes.
So with the CBP FOIA, does that include their exits if they came in with their green card? I know some people, they don't use their passports, they'll use their green card. I know it gets scanned at the border. So with CBP, usually they'll say like, I didn't take a passport, I used my green card to exit and depart and return.
Yeah.
Would the CBP FOIA show those exits and entries?
I think so, because I think it's all tied to like their name and their information. Dang, I can't imagine people exiting without like international travel without a passport.
They'll have their passport, but they'll
for
always
Mexico?
for example, for like a Mexican passport, but they'll say, they didn't stamp it, they didn't seal it. They'll say
yeah.
I showed them my green card and that was it, and they let me in.
Oh yeah, so for international travel, they are not keeping track of you like to the point where an I-94 will show it anymore. Like so your entries and exits won't be seen on the I-94 anymore, but they are still keeping track of you. So all of that is still done with your name and your A number. Even my records are on there too. So it's just about requesting a FOIA at that point, and it'll still show it even if they're not stamping anything. Yeah, and this is for any country. We already went over good moral character. I think this is all just the same information all over again. All right, so after you've talked to them, after you've confirmed that they are eligible for naturalization, this is the right process for them, then it's just about collecting documents. Like I mentioned before, all of immigration moves through forms and documents. So it's all just information and papers. But here is a list of documents that they need to request. You don't have to write all of them down. We can send you this PowerPoint at any time. But it's just confirming that they're a resident, so with a green card, confirming their identification again, passports that they've gotten, and for passports, it's a immigration process, so you want to bring your passports for this. You want to ask them to bring a travel list if they have extensive travel, but if they've never left, not really necessary. You want to see their IRS transcripts if they haven't paid off their taxes, at least confirmation that they have a payment plan with the IRS. Any divorce and marriage documents, or anything that has to do about marriage or divorce. Any criminal records that they have, selective service proof if that applies to them, and also any proof of disabilities or the need for accommodations. But this is just a very brief list of what is needed. If there are any issues we have to solve ahead of time, we can, or if you see any issues, then we can request it. And I guess the only other thing I'd add to this list is evidence of good moral character, which is that here? No. But yeah, anything to prove that they are a good person. So nowadays, they want letters from your employer and letters from your neighbors, and they may also do a social media check just to make sure you don't have any anti-American sentiments on your social media. Whatever that is, I don't know, that's beyond me. And so, we've filled out the forms, we've collected the documents, we've mailed it off, and now at that point, once it's been mailed off, I'd say that's when the study period really begins, or when we should encourage them to start studying, because the earlier we study it, the more it is stuck in our long-term memory storage. So that way it's not, basically this isn't a test to procrastinate on. I mean, most tests we've had to take before were typically because we had to. This is one we signed up for and one we paid for. This is something we want out of it, so might as well take it seriously. And one of the best test tips is making sure the information is stored in your long-term memory. So we want to encourage them to study early and just guide them through that process as well. So there are so many resources online. Tons of YouTube videos, people created apps, like there are a lot of resources, and USCIS has a ton of them as well. They have vocabulary lists, they have all the questions and answers there ready for you. So we want to encourage them to study and take advantage of the resources, and it's always good to get acquainted with the resources, because when you're talking to someone, maybe one form of studying works better than another.